Good evening and welcome to Crossroads. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is now standing trial, and this is not a trial in a normal court system. It's an impeachment trial brought by his own party. His fate's going to be decided by a jury of 31 senators. Now, the Republican-controlled Texas House of Representatives, they voted to have him removed from office, and that was in a narrow vote of just 121 to 123. The accusations against him, they include taking bribes, using his office to help a donor, and if he's convicted in any of the 20 articles brought against him, he's going to face a second vote that will block him potentially from ever holding public office ever again. In other words, it's quite the show. Now, back in May, President Donald Trump came to Paxton's defense, and Trump alleged at the time that the attempts to remove him as Attorney General, that it was coming through a collusion of not just the radical left Democrats, but also rhinos, as Trump called them. That's the Republicans in name only. Trump wrote this: "The rhino Speaker of the House of Texas, Dade Phelan, who is barely a Republican at all and failed the test on voter integrity, wants to impeach one of the most hardworking and effective attorney generals in the United States, Ken Paxton, who just won re-election with a large number of American patriots strongly voting for him." You would think that any issue would have been fully adjudicated by the voters of Texas, especially when that vote was so conclusive. Now, around that time, Paxton also came to his own defense, and he wrote in a statement that he just won an election. Texas voters chose him as Attorney General. But then he said this: "4 liberal lawyers put forward a report to the House General Investigating Committee based on hearsay and gossip, parroting long disproven claims." Now, the Texas House of Representatives then moved on those claims. This is not going through a normal court system. It's going through this public office. And they gave his office no chance for rebuttal, no due process, and he said they're now carrying out what he says is an attack on his office by corrupted politicians. And Paxton had an interesting take on why he believes this is happening. He wrote this: "There is a reason CNN called Texas a legal graveyard for Biden policies. I am doing exactly what voters elected me to do." Now, what's happening? Paxton is alleging the attempts to remove him are because he was among a small handful of attorney generals who have stood up against the political machine in Washington. That same opinion, interestingly, was echoed by Texas Senator Ted Cruz also around that time. He wrote that nearly all the accusations against Paxton were already public before Election Day, and that means the American voters chose him for office despite all these claims. And the real accusation against Paxton may be less about the accusations and more about his political stance. Cruz said this: "No attorney general has battled the abuses of the Biden admin more ferociously and more effectively than has Paxton." And he added, "That's why the swamp in Austin wants him out. The special interests don't want a steadfast, conservative AG." Now look, whether you agree with these statements or not, Paxton has become a type of legal martyr in the eyes of those standing against the so-called uniparty, as Trump would call them, the rhinos and the radical left Democrats. For this portion of America, the removal of Paxton from office, if they can do it, it's an example of the swamp fighting back. It's an underhanded message that if you challenge the agendas of the new regime, the arms of the establishment will rise up to tear you down. But what's really interesting in all this is what comes next. Alongside the narrative and everything that's happening right now is a broader concept that America, justice here, is being weaponized politically. It's the picture of Trump facing the rolling indictments. It's the narrative of the January 6th defendants, the victims of censorship, the censorship establishment, the targets of pre-dawn raids, authoritarian mandates, the two-faced legal system. And it seems to be the pattern. Trump is not just calling this out, he's calling on America to fight back, at least legally. Trump issued what appeared to be a call to action across the nation. He's calling on the Republican attorneys general across the country, like Ken Paxton, and he's calling on the district attorneys across the nation to stand up. He wants them to watch what's happening and, as he puts it, fight fire with fire.
I hope that Republican district attorneys and attorney generals throughout the country are closely watching the tremendous weaponization of justice that is being utilized against me. There's never been anything like it. But you ought to watch, and frankly, it's an eye for an eye, or it's fight fire with fire. What they're doing to our country is amazing. So Republicans, I hope you're watching.
Now, it raises some real questions. Conservatives have bemoaned the weak on crime policies of the so-called Soros DAs. It's the legal system that seems to have a revolving door if you're an actual criminal, but seemingly no mercy if you're a political enemy of the Democrats. It's the image of a DOJ that will ruthlessly target Trump and so-called MAGA Republicans, while apparently protecting the interests of Hunter Biden and the political allies on the left. It's the question, as Trump has raised in posts on Truth Social, of whether Attorney General Merrick Garland should be impeached, whether actions to remove AGs and DAs from office should be enacted across the country on the other side, similar to what's being done against Ken Paxton in Texas. Well, that's all for YouTube. For the rest of the episode, come join us on Epoch TV. Breathe the fresh air of freedom, where we can talk about things we cannot talk about on YouTube, such as all the COVID news or all the election news. Things we cannot go too into detail here because they will give us a strike. We have a flash sale right now, 25 cents for a week, so come over, join us. Also, we have great Q&As, great other shows, documentaries, movies, a lot of great content. Also, the rest of this episode, we'll be talking about, for example, the United Nations agenda, where they're trying to get kids to sue their elected leaders, being bankrolled the whole way, being manipulated the whole way, and then using these legal attacks to try to enact laws in other countries. Big scam going on, in my opinion. I'll explain exactly what's happening. We'll also be talking about the return of mask mandates. Biden's saying he's going to start wearing a mask again. What's really going on with this, and, well, do they actually work? What can you do about it? We have an important discussion on that coming up as well. So again, come join us on Epoch TV. I'll see you there.
People from 160 countries illegally cross the U.S.-Mexico border and give themselves up to Border Patrol. But what about the ones who evade Border Patrol? These are known as the gotaways.
You can safely assume that anybody that went through the extra effort to avoid U.S. Border Patrol was not an asylum seeker by default.
It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but somewhere down the road, if somebody rapes and kills somebody, and we find out that they came through here on my watch, that's unacceptable.
These men had surrounded my house. They were banging on my back door. They were banging on my front door.
You can't understand it unless you're out here seeing it every day. 21 dead bodies on the property.
Code 3 response.
Is it wrong to ask people to come to your front door of your home? Then why would it be wrong to ask people to come to the front door of our nation?
Their primary goal is to circumvent the checkpoints, go undetected.
People that do not want to surrender, those are going to be the potential terrorists, the criminals, the real threat to the U.S.
We were hoping the federal government would step in and do something, but they didn't.
We have no clue who they are or where they're going. That's the scary part.